Yeah, it is. 5 more seconds, 10 more seconds. I think we're ready. We're ready now.
Awesome.
All right. Welcome to Halitics. And I do apologize for the problems we had. At first, I was telling Jay it's just one more thing I've screwed up. But actually, I think, to be fair to me, this is on YouTube. We had a few moments, and then it just sort of collapsed. So that's the way it goes. Jay Waxse with us. He is one of the leaders at Climate Defiance. You are my third Climate Defiance guest. We started with BA from Chicago. Next up, Maury, one of the greatest, spokespeople for the climate, for the planet, from West Virginia, fighting tooth and nail against the MVP, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, with us yesterday. Now, Jay, tell us about Climate Defiance, what you're doing.
Yeah, well, appreciate it, Hal. It's so good to be here and with you in action. I just came from an action with the great Maury Johnson and some of our other comrades that we really help calling out how things like the Mountain Valley Pipeline are not things that we can stand in a future that I think a lot of us can feel is heating up pretty quickly. And so, while we're here with Climate Defiance, our whole goal from the beginning has been to put pressure to raise awareness and climate consciousness in this climate emergency that we have on our public officials like Biden, like many Congress people, like Joe Manchin, like Amy Klobuchar, who don't see the emergency that we're facing. And so with Climate Defiance, our very first message was simply to get our elected officials, our public leaders, the leaders in quotes, because we're seeing a lot of leadership that isn't coming from these offices, but to put just direct policy demands to them to help us to end fossil fuels so that we can stop heating our globe. And so with our very first off the bat, we announced that we were going to be blockading the White House Correspondents' Dinner so that we could ask Biden to hold a campaign promise that he told us from the very beginning, which was to end fossil fuel drilling on federal lands. He said that on the trail. He said, no more drilling on federal lands, period. And I campaigned for him. I voted for him. So our initial target being Joe Biden, that's all we're asking for, was for him to keep his promise to end drilling on federal lands, as he said. And then he expanded with the Willow Project, expanding these other fossil fuel projects that we can't stand for. We won't be able to survive with. Our scientists are screaming that. I'm a published scientist, and it is the answers are clear. And so we're just raising these awarenesses and understanding that without true and deep action on the climate emergency, it's not going to be a future that we can depend on.
Yeah, no question about that. And we were talking a little bit about future for children, future for grandchildren. Right now, we're just looking at trying to get through, I guess, the next 2 years. This is the hottest year ever, right? And that's been the case for 8 straight years, right? The 8 last years have been the hottest years on record, not consecutively, which is somewhat interesting, but you get these sort of plateaus at ever higher levels. With El Nino now, we're seeing 2023 shattering records. Just day after day is the hottest ever. People dying. Are you optimistic as a young man, someone you mentioned as a scientist? You have hopefully the optimism of youth, but tempered with the reality that you are aware of scientifically. How do you get through the day? How do you get through the week, Jay?
So it really is through the people that care and that recognize that we have a big problem in front of us. We have a way of being that is extractive, that is exploitative, that is way too much, way too rushed, way too fast. And the people that see that have been the thing that have revitalized optimism in me. I've been learning from our beautiful comrades from indigenous communities across the country, for example, in North Dakota and Minnesota, and they're reminding us the truth that the earth is abundant and that scarcity is a myth, and that even though we're facing an immense problem with some baked-in heating that's probably not going to be changed anytime soon, but there are solutions that this ecosystem that we call home it is abundant and it's ready to be regenerative if we can respect the relationship that we have with our Mother Earth and get to a place where we actually protect the communities and the people and the wilderness that we have depended on since we came out of Africa, since we came as a people.
I mean,
To
all organisms, all living organisms need a somewhat stable environment that has the nutrients that they've evolved to consume. And we are doing an experiment on Earth that we've never seen before. Even when the dinosaurs were extinguished 65 million years ago, it was over a period of hundreds of thousands of years, Jay. We're changing the climate in extraordinary ways in a matter of decades.
Absolutely. And, I'm here in Piscataway County territory or Washington, D.C., and we've got helicopters and planes, and we've been doing resistance to what we see with a lot of private jet flights that we're just out here burning and zooming and rushing and not really paying attention to enough of the things that matter, that nature's ready to remind us are the ways that we can be in right relationship. And so, yeah, we need to not just throw another technological solution at it, but the thing that, to get us back to the hope, the optimism question, it's if we have a chance to realize that people aren't meant to work 60 hours a week and barely have enough time or money or energy to feel like they're surviving, or even let alone enjoy life, this life this time we have on the planet with our loved ones and families. We shouldn't just have to work until our back breaks and we put our bodies on the line. And that very rushing is connected to our overblown consumption of fossil fuels that are emitted into the air that we know is heating up this planet like a greenhouse. And so we need systemic change. That's what gives me hope, is that when we can lean back into nature and how powerful it is and how abundant it is, whether with the soils, with the waters, with air, with glaciers, different systems that are ready to regenerate and ready to help us, as they always have, to provide for us. They're ready to help us with this problem of us just spewing more and more carbon and more caustic pollutants as we have.
Absolutely. If we stop just jamming shivs into Mother Earth, she has demonstrated a remarkable ability to recover and regenerate. But because we keep disrupting the environment in ever more aggressive ways, she has not had that opportunity. We're only digging a deeper hole for ourselves and other life forms. I want to hear more from you, Jay, but I also always promise to get my callers on as soon as possible. We have someone from the 917 New York area code. Who's calling, please? I hear you. Who's there? Hello? All right. Well, if you don't want to join, you don't have to, but we'd love to get you on if you can. Okay. Who's laughing? Come on. Who's there?
That was me. That was me. Al.
Oh, it was? All right. Well, we'll let you go then, caller, because we got to keep this conversation going with Jay. Sorry that you aren't able to be on at this point. I don't know if that was some kind of a joke, but that's the first time that's ever happened. I'll let them go. So, Jay, there you go. There's your headline. Washington Post, 9 climate protesters arrested in congressional office building. This was yesterday. What did you do? What did you do to get arrested?
Yeah, no, that's the question. What we've been doing from the start, like I said, we announced that we would be blockading the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I'll just frame this, that in this whole picture, when we have places like such opulence on display, as the White House Correspondents' Dinner did, to put that in the face of all of us when so many of us are just driven to survive and try to make it, that when we go into places like the halls of Congress that are sadly places that corporations and big money interests have far too much say, we show up to places where we haven't been invited. The youth vote hasn't, the youth perspective hasn't been invited. Impacted communities haven't been invited. Indigenous communities haven't been invited. And so we have fewer and fewer options sometimes with our democracy. And when we're showing up at a meeting that, if that's too loud, Hal, let me know. I can move. But
no, you're fine, man. I hear you loud
okay,
and clear.
great,
No problems.
great, wonderful. So yeah. So with the meeting yesterday, that was with Mary, who is the deputy climate advisor to the White House. Not even Ali Zaidi wanted to show up at that one. We've disrupted Mr. Zaidi 3 times now. Had conversation with Ali, and he brought the talking points from the Biden administration, that pretending the Biden administration is some kind of climate champion just because they passed some climate funding that no other president has done in history. I'm sorry, but the bar is the floor in that case. So if you're calling yourself a climate champion, we're gonna raise up the fact that the infrastructure, the IRA had some climate provisions in it. It is nowhere near prioritized at the level that we need, such as the way that we that we see Congress prioritizing warfare. But sorry, I'm bouncing around. We get frustrated because of all these dynamics. But the reason we showed up yesterday is because we knew that there was another opportunity to go to where the White House is speaking about their climate plans and to raise the real urgency that our planet is calling out for, and to ask about the emergency that is before us of global heating and all the things that could ensue. And Elena, really one of our beautiful organizers, leveled some really thoughtful, really great questions directly to Mary, and she couldn't give us a single word. And so.
And you can see, and I'm going to play that video in just a sec for you, Jay. We have that 917 caller back, but I'm a little reluctant to put them on after they didn't respond. If you want to join us, caller,
let's hear it.
Say your name right now, and I'll put you on. But I'm going to play the video first. So here's the video. It's a little bit hard to understand because there's a lot of back chat. I actually took this and my phone did not have a boom mic, so it's not ideal. But you can hear Elena in the suit speaking, and Mary Frances is the lady in blue seated sort of towards the back right.
I think Mary Belko.
Manchin's dirty deal, they let that go through, and the debt ceiling bill, Willow. How am I expected to sit there and have a conversation when this kind of lack of action is going to kill us?
All right, so if you had trouble understanding Elena, what she was saying is, you're saying to have a conversation. That's what we're trying to do. But how can we have one when you have consistently failed to take action? And she cites to the Willow Creek Project and MVP and says, you want to talk, but your actions are speaking far louder than words. You're not. You're making things worse. And just to throw that in, Jane, I think you mentioned this earlier, either before we went on the air or during. The Biden administration pats itself on the back a lot about how they're supposedly better than Trump. I'm not even buying it. The studies show what they've approved more. They've approved more drilling than Trump. They can't even beat the lowest bar possible.
It's not even a hard study. It's literally just the Biden administration approving more leases on federal lands than Trump. So if you're calling yourself a climate champion and your championship is just barely above in terms of funding, but actually worse in terms of what 45 did in the terms, what Trump did in terms of fossil fuel expansion, the same guy who said drill baby drill, not a great look. Not a great look for the Biden administration.
Well, one of their excuses is, the courts have all told us we have to approve these. We can't delay. That's so lame. They could just have a blanket denial on everything. Fine. Take us to court every single time. Pay your lawyers, incur huge legal fees, and we'll fight you tooth and nail on every single one. They could do that.
Well, and we know, and we know what group really throws the weight of their pocketbooks towards legal battles. That's Chevron, that's Exxon. Our comrade and friend Stephen Donziger, who was charged with criminal contempt of court for getting Ecuadorian indigenous communities protected from was it Chevron or Shell's?
It was Chevron. It was Chevron down in Amazonia.
Chevron's,
right.
Chevron's damage to those communities, and They want to go the legal route. They want to look for any justification or ability to skip taking responsibility. But when are when are we going to have a situation again where we have a leader, let's say in this case President Biden, that uses his bully pulpit to help drive change and drive some kind of change that isn't just literally in the system that we have been in? What did Einstein say? Einstein said that we can't come up with solutions to the problem with the same mind that created them. We are in a capitalistic, extractive mind right now. And I know we don't go to isms all the time, but we have something that is prioritizing money over the outcome of what that project is. And when we can actually take a look at, oh yeah, well, I know y'all want another pipeline, but have you even seen what's happening along the path of the last pipeline you made? It's leaking methane. It was further heating the planet 38 times harder than carbon. It's leaking into communities that have water that they're depending on, poisoning indigenous communities' water. Pipelines at risk of exploding because they're on earthquake fault lines, and they just want to build more without considering the externalities and the impacts that it's having. So we have to raise these voices. We have to be bringing climate leadership that our elected leaders don't seem to be valuing at all.
Well, you are raising the voices. It's tremendous what you're doing, Jay, and what Climate Defiance is doing, what all the great activists there are doing. I'm glad I've got to be kind of a witness. I don't really want to get arrested. I have to admit that's not where I am, but I'm staying there with you. Absolutely. And here's some of the folks yesterday. Where's Jay?
Can't hear audio.
We are from fossil fuels, burn and fossil fuels.
And one thing I really liked about that too, about yesterday's event, is sometimes you have these kind of performative civil disobedience in quotes, where everyone knows that the police are going to be there and they're just going to escort you after a little bit of time to a tent, give you a citation. That wasn't the case yesterday. Yesterday, you guys faced some, potential really serious negative consequences. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I want to lift up, but in my role as co-leading a lot of these actions in DC area, at least, is really just been to lift up the beautiful, beautiful people that are here taking action together. And I want to do that now by saying, John Mark, celebrating what we've been doing with Climate Defiance, he said, y'all have got that love and rage thing down. That is such a big piece of what enables the outcomes for what we're doing, is that we literally talk about leading with love every time before we go into these actions. And when you do that, you know that these situations, we're not wishing any kind of harm. We're not intentionally trying to humiliate anyone. We are asking for realness in a Congress, in a media that doesn't like to get real very often. And when that happens, we see things break down a little bit, and some of the lies, some of the ways that folks are hiding from answering hard questions. And so, as you see these arrests, Michael, and to lift up again what Michael Greenberg said, our founder, is just that, like, the arrests aren't the goal. We don't want to be arrested. We're choosing to go into that to be the outcome. The reason that it happens is because we are at a meeting where we're very kindly, if you listen to Elena's questions, she asked many questions of Mary to have every opportunity just to give a single word to us in back. And instead, the attitude for them is always run away, not to follow up with us later. We've been reaching out. We don't hear much. It's to run away. And so what are we to do? Are we supposed to be, leave there without any answers? No, we followed Mary down the hallway. She went to an elevator again after not a single word. Every opportunity. We're smart, intelligent people that are really caring about this problem. We want to work together. And as she ran away, she got away. But we're in the halls of Congress, and we know that our message, our wording of ending fossil fuels. Hey Congress, hey Joe, get off it. Put people over profit. that is a message that needs to be heard. And so we were happy to scream it and to chant it and hold up a banner that I guess technically isn't allowed, but raising our voices to that degree technically isn't allowed. And so we're still out there with our First Amendment rights to protest and to assemble. They don't have quite the policy that allows for that. So they felt that after a certain point that we were going to be arrested, and we wanted to keep our message going as long as possible, because as you saw how down the hallway that we went, there was 100 interns all ready to go see a House hearing on investigating Hunter Biden. I mean, we don't need to get into any of the specifics there, but that is what this House of Congress, House in Congress is focusing on. And for interns to be lined up to get a little witness into that theatrical show, we were in the hallway lifting up that our planet is dying, that we have to end fossil fuel. Scientists have been screaming it for decades. And, we wanted to be there as long as possible. And we're going to be there until they removed us, because interns were hearing us every time the door cracked open after Ro Khanna shook our hands and was thanking us for our leadership. I saw Jim Jordan up there, some of these really frustrating representatives. And so made sure to yell real extra loud at that point when the door was cracked, end fossil fuels, because they're not hearing it in those halls.
It's tremendous. It's tremendous activism. And it's not just even in the halls of Congress, because of all the great media attention that you received from the Washington Post, from the conservative Daily Caller. And I just want to say one thing ironic about the Daily Caller. My son actually, he's talking about the apple in some ways falling far from the tree. My son is a reporter for the Daily Caller. And I saw some of the comments. People were chiding the climate defiance activists for being, I don't know, immature, petulant. These are the same people who mobbed the Capitol back on the January 6th, 2021, and they have the nerve to complain, to point fingers. They're so self-unaware.
And how you and I have talked a bit. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting where we're finding ourselves in our political landscape of a broken political system that just to zero in on one point that we've talked, and I know the conservative perspective actually is not unaware. They're actually pretty significantly aware that our politicians are very bought out. They're very much captured by special interests, and they are well aware that our leaders that are there working on, maybe it's their own pet project they're trying to get some money for. Kristen Sinema, for example, working for Big Pharma. Like when I've been out and canvassing, I worked for Bernie. I've canvassed for about 10 to 20,000 doors by now. People are well aware politicians are bought out. And so to say that we're being immature by expressing some outrage and some frustration that we have the people's house in our capital city that is really not that often for the people. It's actually more often for, by, and from the corporations.
Absolutely. All right. You mentioned, I was going to jump past the rest of the clip with Elena, but you mentioned her and her very professional, very impressive demeanor. So I thought I would play it also because I think you can make out, and if you can, I'll repeat it, a question from one of the people in the audience. Maybe it was Congressmember Huffman. I'm not sure, but here we go. Okay, let's see. We got to get that unmuted. Here we go.
And I'm sorry, but that seems to be our last option to make a change.
It doesn't upset us. It's just counterproductive. We need to have this conversation, and you need to leave. We can have our conversation.
Is this the first?
All right, let me stop it right there. That was what I wanted you to respond to. I'm glad you could hear what the I believe it was a congresswoman said. It's just not productive, right? It's counterproductive. We want to have this meeting. You're not letting us have this meeting where we're going to talk with the White House about how to address the climate crisis, the climate cataclysm. I'm glad you call it global heating, because I think global warming isn't nearly strong enough. It's not like you're warming your feet by the fire. They're burning up in a Holocaust. So how do you respond to the Congress member who says, "Oh, well, you just got to let us have our meeting. You're focusing in the wrong place"?
Yeah. No, I mean, while remembering that Florida waters off the coast of Florida reach 99 degrees, which is the temperature of a hot tub, and which we know isn't safe to be in for more than 20 minutes. What about all the animals that are living in there? How do we carry that information into places like this that they aren't having their meeting with not even the person that was planning on being there? Ali Zaidi didn't decide he wanted to show up, maybe because of our presence and a recognition that we might be showing up. And then in turn, only about 10 Congress people were even there in that room. And so I was speaking with Katie Porter a bit. We love Katie Porter. She is really great at putting the feet to the fire to get our defense budget down and these kind of things. She was a little frustrated that she couldn't get her question to Mary Belko to pressure the Biden administration a little bit about the climate crisis. But if they're not even sending their top person, they have shown zero ability to listen to the will of young people about actual action on ending fossil fuels and protecting the climate, that they chose to respond in that way to shut us down in a time where we obviously cared a lot to get ourselves into that space. They gave no tangible answers whatsoever. And that's what it's just bizarre. I don't think they have the answers oftentimes, but it's just interesting that they don't realize that our love language is policy. We want to hear policy that is actually matching the strengths, the massive challenges that are in front of us. And instead of asking us to leave or telling us that our tactics are wrong, we just actually would love a question about something meaningful and solution based, whether it's regenerative soils, whether it's protecting our environmental landscape, or ending fossil fuels and expanding renewable energy.
Let's just price carbon, or and we'll talk a little bit. At least I'm going to be talking about this going forward. Lawsuits, right? Bring suits on behalf of your states or on behalf of your the federal government against the corporations that lied to us repeatedly and are now literally burning our planet up, not figuratively, literally.
Well, and that goes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I jumped for a sec, but that goes to an even higher level than Congress. That so much of how the fossil fuel lobby and these corporations have. Al, you still there?
I'm sure I am. I'm listening. Just listen. Can you hear me?
Okay, cool. Sorry, it was freezing up a little bit. With the even higher than Congress is these fossil fuel lobbies that have had.
We're actually losing you a little bit, Jay.
Cuts.
Yeah, we're actually losing Jay a little bit. I'm sorry about that. He's kind of frozen. I'm going to just mute you for a sec, Jay, if you can hear me. We're getting a little bit of problem on your end. I just want to bring up Jared Huffman, who was at that event yesterday, and he was saying, I'm going to listen. I want to talk to you. I did talk to him outside the meeting, and I brought up the fact that the Democrats themselves should not be pointing fingers only at Republicans. They need to clean their own house. And I noted that he said, well, I voted against the MVP and I'm very angry, or I voted against that dirty debt ceiling deal. And I think Biden was wrong about Willow Creek. And I said, yeah, but you voted for Hakeem Jeffries to be House Minority Leader, which every single Democrat did. And he is the Congress member from AIPAC and Wall Street, and he helped usher through Biden's dirty debt deal. He didn't push back. He just said, go ahead. So your vote for Hakeem Jeffries was a big part of the problem. He responded, well, what would you like? You want who's the leader? I can't remember the guy who is it? The speaker. He said, do you want the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy? Do you want Kevin McCarthy to be the House Minority Leader? I'm like, he's not going to be that. He's the Speaker. He's not a Democrat. You vote for a Democrat. You didn't have to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. What a ridiculous answer. And then he said, well, I guess you're pretty mad at AOC for doing the same thing. I said, absolutely. Of course I am. What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be just as angry at her? She's just as big a phone. I didn't say that. I was thinking she's just as big a phony as you are. And he just walks away. Must be nice to always be right. And I'm fine. Okay. But how's that a conversation? It's not good to die.
Well, and we would love as a people, as a body politic, to not be given a response to our caring questions of but what do you want? Do you want the even worse thing
That's
than me?
right. That's right.
I hate that. You know, it's just to hear from so many folks that but band behind I'm not even get specific, but just band behind a certain political party to say, oh, but if you don't go for us, you're going to get even worse with that side. That's just a defeatist mindset. Like we are better than that. We can have a positive vision of a world that actually feels like one that would protect us, that would keep us safe, that would keep us fed, that would have clean air, clean water. And if you're gonna just say, but look at this evil, ugly thing. If you don't support me, you'll get this. Like that's what our politics have turned into, instead of facing deadly solutions.
Right. Right on, man. And I just want to put this chart up that I got from, I mentioned this before. I love doing this Halitics because I learned so much. I learned so much from Climate Defiance. This posted either at your Twitter feed, which is, you can see it, I think it's at J for Climate, or at Climate Defiance on Twitter. And you can see from the 3rd to the 18th, and this was posted, I guess, on the 18th or 19th. So we have seen for 16 straight days, the hottest day ever recorded. And the hottest days previous to this year were frequently last year. So we're in the midst of remarkable spiking of temperatures, Jay, and I guess that is that and the fact that you and many of the other activists in Climate Defiance are younger people, and you do it out of love for the planet, out of love for your fellow millennials and 20-somethings and 30-somethings, but also I think out of fear, right? I mean, you do want to live on a planet that can nurture life and sustain life.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's out of all those things. We are multitudes, and we carry a lot of things with us at the same time, in an emotional sense, and in our knowledge, the facts, what our scientist friends at Climate Defiance are telling us in terms of exactly that chart you just showed, that this heating has so many runaway effects that are able to be predicted. Climate science has been very well respected in terms of a scientific field for decades now, but even the things that we're predicting, we're seeing beyond that already with North Atlantic sea temperatures. It is scary. It's scary as hell. And to think that we can survive if we bleach out all these coral reefs, if we continue to put such stress on, Arctic and Antarctic ecosystems that start cascading things that we could have never honestly fully known. And so it is out of a little bit of fear, but I will say mostly love and the belief that humans are amazingly powerful. If we can tap into the thing that has made us, in my view, survive this long, it's our social nature, and realizing that if we can do it together, even beyond humanity, like we were saying earlier, with our animal and plant brothers and sisters, that we could never be here without all of the living beings that have got us to this point. And so that chart is scary as hell, and it's to put it in context, like it's sad we're normalizing to this feeling, but how we were talking earlier, this might actually be the coolest July for the rest of our lives, even though we just broke 14 records in a row. And there's no way. I am an optimist at heart, but there's no way to look at that and feel like there's anything that we can do except bold, transformative behavior.
Yeah, well, on that note, I'm going to call out every organization to support, and I know you may disagree. I'll put you on the spot here, but I'm all in for Dr. Cornel West. I've already announced I support him. I will not support a Democrat. If there had been what I consider to be a truly progressive, populist Democrat running, I don't think there is. I understand there are alternatives to Biden. I'm not telling people they shouldn't vote for one of the alternatives to Biden who probably would be a little better. I think Dr. West is the right choice. I think he's the one. He speaks like you do too, or you speak like he does. I mean, he's a lot older than you are. So in terms of the concern for other living creatures, and I talk about fear. I mentioned fear. You talk about love. I also just talk about sadness. We're living through the 6th great extinction. This is the Anthropocene age. It's human beings that are causing it. every time a species goes extinct, and it happens, of course, naturally, right? Because of what an asteroid collides with a planet, or there's some change of the environment, or what have you. A new species comes on the scene that's takes up all the space for the old species. So that can happen naturally, but we're causing rates of 1,000 times the natural rate of extinction. Every time a species goes extinct, Jay, and you know this, you're a scientist, it takes another creation for that species to come back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think that is a great reflection of what has gotten us to this point. We really feel that it seems like we feel that we're not in this ecosystem that is dependent on interdependence, on our connection to the living systems around us. Look at trees and the ways they rely on fungi to even survive. And thank you, trees, for this very oxygen we breathe. Algae, anything with those capabilities as well. But no, 100%. And as we were here on the podcast, I see my namesake, a blue jay, flying around, and that biodiversity is undeniably something that absolutely protects us. And as we are in the middle of a great extinction, the sixth great mass extinction event, that is another thing that's supremely scary and should really motivate us to protect these things that not only we depend on, but that give so much joy. Who doesn't love their animals in their life and wouldn't want to imagine life without them? So there's no reason that we can't extend this behind the walls or fence of our yards to realize that our fellow living species are at grave risk. And I do think Dr. Cornel West hits that really well. I am fully in as well. I've reached out, even said I'd love to work on the campaign. We were both, you and I both, I think, saw the upside and potential in Bernie. Dr. Cornel West did as well. And I am somebody right now at this standpoint where I have seen just disappointment out of the Biden administration so far. I would actually be less disappointed if he didn't promise the things that he did, that his administration is showing a very clear ignorance towards doing, whether ending drilling on federal lands, ending 287G contracts for immigration to prevent ICE from brutalizing our undocumented brothers and sisters, or just those who are trying to seek a safe space. Remain in Mexico is still a policy. We're still keeping kids from their parents at the border of Mexico, as if people from our southern border are any less human than people from our north border. So, it's just I can't handle that anymore. I feel outright disrespected, and I don't see anything out of the Biden administration that would get me inspired to vote for him. And I know that's the case for the dozens and dozens of young people that are coming out with us to Climate Defiance, and thousands more that we've been talking with. So Dr. Cornel West has my full support. I love Marianne Williamson as well, and I'm somebody that, as I think I'd work for Dr. West's campaign, primarily because I do get so sick of having to play the Democratic Party's game. What they've shown, the way that they're willing to manipulate primary battles and this kind of thing. So the fact that Dr. West is running at one of our outside of our duopoly, of our broken political system, it is really exciting. And I'm a citizen who, up until none of us know what's going to happen out until next year. And so nobody's going to pressure me into saying that I need to vote for somebody who's broken so many promises out until we get to actually closer to the election, when we as citizens all get to decide who we think has the best chance to save our future. And right now it is not Joe Biden.
No, it's no question. Hey, you know what? One of my tests is, people say you have a litmus test. Well, one of them is that at least you're going to make things a little bit better. And so far, we're seeing both. The duopoly makes things worse, and it's been that way for 30, 40 plus years at a minimum. We've got Jay Waxse with us for just a little bit longer. I do want to remind folks I'm very mindful of Jay's time and also his phone's battery. You're watching Halitics. Please click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe. It's really easy. You just click that blue and white square in the bottom right of your screen. We make it as easy as we can and it don't cost nothing. I'm not asking you for anything. Just subscribe. I want to get those numbers up. Jay, yes, 12 dead in Phoenix now because of that heat, 5,500 investigations heat related. This is a handful compared to Europe. I read 70,000 in Italy, where they don't have widespread air conditioning, or not nearly to the degree here. In Southern Europe, where the temperatures have been routinely triple digits, it never used to get that hot. We saw 70,000 die in Italy. This is the number one, apparently heat is the number one cause of death now. A natural cause of death.
One of our beautiful activists that's been throwing down like crazy with us, Ali, was saying that southern Iran is going to be one of the places that at first is determined uninhabitable. And we're seeing this more and more. I believe it was in either Pakistan or Iraq that we saw 150-degree heat index. You shared that 131 in Phoenix, and we're seeing these cases, and we deserve absolute compassion for these that we've lost already. And I'm getting chills even just saying the fact that these types of things, by factors of dozens, is maybe just a minor comparison of what we'll see in the future of casualties based on a heated planet that fossil fuel companies knew in the 80s would happen if we continued to emit as we did. And they decided to spread propaganda counter to that with their funding. They chose to spend money against that truth. And so they need to pay. They need to pay reparations to get us to a place that has any chance of surviving. And the individual effects on our bodily survival are massive. And then look at the geopolitical effects of, as we create more uninhabitable zones, we could have upwards to 2 or 3 billion in the global south that have to move and to relocate so that they can survive. And we think that we're struggling with some political dynamics now. We've got to get our shit together now, because the challenges that we'll be facing together, COVID has proved to us that we are doing this in a mutual way that we can't escape. If we wanted to, which I don't want to. I love community. I love, and I think the powers of togetherness can get us anything. If we can do it together, the more of us, the better. No matter your creed, your political party, any of it. And so I think that as we're seeing these things, I really just hope and do believe that people will continue to see that our leaders aren't going to be the ones to protect us into the future. We got to take things into our own hands and continue to find ways where we can do it better than our quote unquote elites out there.
Yeah, no question. I really appreciate everything you've said. What a great guest you've been, Jay. I really am honored to work with you. I look forward to continuing our relationship in Climate Defiance. I'm very, very pleased I found your organization. I am actually going to be bringing the program now to a close. I thank Jay so much for being part of it. I want to end on another optimistic note, and Jay brought a lot of optimism along with reality, some dousing of cold water. I wish we probably need a lot more cold water these days. But some optimism as well, just in the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of people who really, really care and want something better. We are seeing lots of different people tackling this in different ways, including, of course, Climate Defiance, Jay, Michael, and the whole group tackling this with civil disobedience, speaking truth to power. I was just so taken with this story, and I'm going to discuss it tomorrow on the Free for All. But this attorney, and I'm rarely envious of what other people do, but so I guess am taken with Missy Sims suing ExxonMobil, suing Shell for what they did to Puerto Rico when the hurricane struck that was rocket fueled by the hot waters of the Caribbean, a direct result of the climate crisis which they have created. And on that note, again, thanks so much for listening, for watching, for being part of Halitics. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great afternoon or morning. I should stop doing that with the times. Great. Have a great rest of your day.